Again, it's a rich thing.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to use Python to perform a sentiment analysis on Dogecoin. So let us get right into it. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to go to developer.twitter.com to the developer portal, and then you want to create a new app here. So first of all, of course, you create an account, and then you go to projects and apps and you create a new project. I'm not going to go through the whole process. First of all, it's very simple. Second of all, I have a video on that already, just Twitter sentiment analysis in Python. But once you have an app or a project, you can get the keys and the tokens for this project. So you get the consumer keys, API key and secret, and you get the authentication token. So this is what you're going to need for today's video. And before we get into code, I want to mention, why do we actually need sentiment analysis? Now, what you can do with sentiment analysis, and I want to say here that this video is not investment advice, it's not cryptocurrency advice in any way. I'm just showing you one option that you can use to or one thing that you can add to your investment strategy if you want to. This is not investment advice, but what you can do with sentiment analysis is you can base your trading or your investment decisions on the opinion of a certain thing on Twitter. So you can say, okay, I want to know if the tweets about Dogecoin, for example, or Bitcoin or any other topic are more positive or more negative. And then you can base your decisions based on the trends that you can see using sentiment analysis. So you can use machine learning to see if the individual tweets are more positive or negative. And then you can say, okay, if the feeling about a certain topic is more negative, I'm going to sell. And if it's more positive, I'm going to buy, and so on. Again, no investment advice here, but this is what you can do with sentiment analysis. All right, so once we have all that, we're going to open up a command line and we're going to install a bunch of different libraries that we're going to need for this project today. And the first one is called TweePy or Tweepy, I think TweePy, which is a combination of Twitter and Python. And we just say pip install TweePy like that. This is what we're going to use to access the Twitter API. In my case, I already have it. Then we're also going to install text blob. So pip install text blob, which is what we're going to use to do the sentiment analysis. As you can see, it's based on NLTK, which is a natural language toolkit. So that is what we're going to use to do the sentiment analysis. Then you should also have pandas, numpy, and matplotlib. So just pip install pandas, pip install numpy, and pip install matplotlib. So I'm not going to do that here. Those are very basic packages, and then we're going to import all of them. So we're going to say import TweePy, import text blob, import pandas spd, import numpy snp, and import matplotlib.pyplot splt. And then we're also going to import regular expressions, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, or maybe in a couple of minutes. But we're going to use regular expressions to change some things about the tweets, because all the tweets usually have some mentions and hashtags, and we want to remove all of those so that we have actual text that we can feed into the sentiment analysis. So those are the libraries that we're going to need. Then we need to set up the things that we need to connect to the actual Twitter API. And for this, we're going to say, in my case here, I have all the Twitter keys, so the API key, the consumer key, and so on, the access token, in this Twitter keys file here, because I don't want to display them while doing the tutorial. You can also, if you're not worried about them, you can also put them as clear text in your code. You can also read them from files. In my case, I have to read them from files, so I'm going to say all keys is going to be open. I'm going to open the file that I called Twitter keys in writing mode, and then I'm going to split it. So I'm going to read the text from it, and then I'm going to split the lines so that I have the individual lines. The first line is one code, the second line is another key, the third line is another key, and the fourth line is another key. So in this case, how I structured it is that the API key is going to be all keys 0, the API secret key secret is going to be all keys 1. And then we also have the access token. The access token is going to be all keys 2. And the access token secret is going to be all keys 3. There you go. Then what we also need is an authenticator. So we need to authenticate to the Twitter API. So we're going to say authenticator is going to be tweepy.oauth handler. And we're going to pass the API key here and the API key secret. And then we need to say authenticator.set access token. And of course, here we're going to pass the access token and the access token secret. So this is how we connect to the API. Now we also need to create the API itself. So we're going to say API equals, by the way, let me just make sure I'm not blocking anything here. I'm going to move this, make it a little bit smaller. So we're going to say API equals tweepy.api with capital letters. And we're going to pass the authenticator. And we're going to say wait on rate limit true, so that we just wait instead of crashing. I think that's what this is for. So besides that, we now have the API. And what we want to do is we want to know what the sentiment for a specific topic is. And this topic in this case is going to be a cryptocurrency. Now the title is Dogecoin sentiment analysis. This is just because I think it's a good title for a video. It's going to be more interesting. We don't have to limit ourselves to this particular cryptocurrency. We can also change this to Bitcoin or Ethereum, or you can even change this to something like Tesla and say you want to know about the sentiment analysis for this topic. So in this case, I'm going to say cryptocurrency, but you can actually call this variable here topic. But I'm going to say cryptocurrency because this video is focused on cryptocurrency. And we're going to call it Dogecoin here. There you go. So we're going to do a sentiment analysis about this topic or on this topic. And then what we need to do is we need to create a cursor and a search term. Now, in the beginning, we're just going to do a basic sentiment analysis without too many limitations. But later on, we're also going to compare the individual time frames. So we're going to see, okay, is Dogecoin today more positive than it was yesterday, for example? And for this, we're going to, first of all, we're not going to talk too much about the start and end day yet. We're going to do that in a second. But for now, we're just going to say search equals, and we're going to do an F string here, which is going to be, we're going to look for hashtag and this cryptocurrency. In this case, it's Dogecoin, so cryptocurrency here. And then we're going to add a tag, which is -filter retweets. This means that we're just not going to take care of retweets. We're just going to look at the ordinary tweets. And once we have that, we need to create a cursor. So we're going to say tweet cursor equals tweepy.cursor with a capital C. And then we're going to say API.search. This is the function. The search term is going to be the search here that we defined. So Q equals search. The language is going to be English. So we're going to pass EN. Of course, you can also, look for topics in your language. So you can also pass DE for German, for example. But we're going to use English here. And then we can also specify two parameters that we're not going to take care of yet. So we're not going to look at since, and we're not going to look at until, because that is a time frame. We're going to skip that for now and add that later on. And we're going to say tweet mode equals extended. And then the important thing is that we specify how many items we want to have, because we don't want to know all the tweets that there are. We want to know a certain number of tweets. Or we want to see a certain number of tweets. So we're going to say .items, and the limit is going to be, for example, 100. We're going to base our sentiment analysis on 100 different tweets. So in order to get the tweets finally, then we just need to say tweets equals, and then here we're going to say a list comprehension, which is tweet dot full text. So we're going to get the text. So tweet dot full text, which is not a function, for tweet in tweet cursor. So we're getting each tweet that we have here in the tweet cursor. As a result of that, we're getting the text of each of that, and we save that into a list. And now we have the list of all tweets, or not all tweets, but of 100 tweets for this topic with or without the retweets. All right, so now we have a list of all the tweets, and we're going to turn this list into a data frame. Then to this data frame, we're going to add a second column, which is going to have the polarity, which is what we're going to use text blob for. And then based on that polarity, we're going to decide if the tweet is either positive or negative. We're not going to allow for any neutral results here because we want to polarize. And then we're going to say tweets df, which is tweets data frame, is pd data frame tweets, and the columns, just so we have a name, columns is going to be tweets. There you go. And now we can go ahead and say, or actually before we add anything to that data frame, we're going to clean the data that is already in there. So we're going to remove all the mentions, we're going to remove all the links, we're going to remove all the hashtags, we're going to remove line breaks. So there's a lot of useless stuff in the tweets that we don't want to take into account when we do the sentiment analysis. So for example, if I tag someone in a tweet, that doesn't give me a lot of information about the sentiment of the text. So we're going to say for, the index is not going to be important, so we're just going to use this placeholder here, for row in tweets data frame dot iteros. So we're going to iterate over the individual rows, and then we're going to apply a regular expression to find certain patterns and then remove or replace them with something else. So we're going to say for the tweets, or for the tweet in this row, the result is going to be regular expression dot sub, and we're going to substitute everything that has the pattern HTTP followed by something, basically, or actually without the colon, because we want to have HTTPS also. So HTTPS and then plus. So this basically means everything that starts with HTTP is going to be replaced by nothing. So we're going to remove it. And as an input, we're going to take the text of this particular row. So we're going to take the tweet, we're going to remove the links, and we're going to save the result into this same row. Once we have done that, we're going to do the same thing with another pattern. So we're going to say regular expression dot sub, and we're going to remove everything that has a hashtag. So we're going to say hashtag backslash and then s plus. We're going to remove this, and we're going to save the result into row tweets. Then we're going to pick another pattern again. So this one is going to be every mention. So if I tag someone, we're going to remove that. So at backslash s plus, this is going to be removed as well. And then finally, we also have backslash n. But backslash n is a bit tricky because backslash n itself is an escape character. So if I want to use this, I need to say backslash n. Because I actually want to pass the string backslash n to the regular expression. I don't want to pass a new line to the regular expression. So this is how we do that. Now we have the clean tweets, you could say. And what we do then is we map a certain function that is going to be an anonymous function onto that data frame. So we're going to actually perform an analysis, a sentiment analysis for all of the individual tweets and save their polarity score. So how do we do that? We're going to say tweets underscore df, which is going to be a new column here. It's going to be polarity. So tweets df polarity is going to be tweets df. And here we're just going to take all the tweets like that, and we're going to map onto them a function. So we're going to say all the tweets map, and here we're going to define a lambda expression. So we're going to say for the tweet that we get to this function, we're going to return text blob dot text blob of this tweet dot sentiment dot polarity. Now I hope I didn't make any mistakes here. Text blob, tweet, sentiment, polarity. Yeah. So what we do here is for each row here, we map this function onto the row, which means that in this new column, polarity, we store all the results for this function being applied on the strings in this row. So we're going to say text blob.tweet sentiment polarity. We're going to get that value. We're going to return it for each tweet in tweets, and this is going to be the result that we store in the polarity column. Now what we can do as well is we can say tweets df result, or you can call this sentiment, or I don't know what you want to call it. So this is just going to be tweets df, and it's going to say it's going to be based on the polarity, and here we're going to map another lambda expression, but not on a tweet. We're going to say lambda pol for polarity, and we're going to say if the polarity is larger than 0, we're going to say it's positive, otherwise it's negative. So we're going to say plus if polarity is larger than 0, else minus. You can also use a word here. I just use the symbols. And this is how we calculate if, or for all the individual tweets, if they're positive or negative. All right, so now we can go ahead and visualize this simple result here. We're going to say positive is going to be tweets data frame, and we're going to count all the tweets where the result is positive. So we're going to say tweets df, where tweets df dot result is plus, and we're going to count the tweets like that. And for negative, we do the same thing. So we say negative, and here we replace with minus, and then we just do a simple bar plot. We're going to say plt.bar 0, 1 here for the x values, and then we're going to pass positive, negative for the y values. We're going to have the label positive, negative, and then color is going to be green for positive and red for negative, like that. Now we can also use a legend. I don't know if it's necessary. And then we say plt.show. So if we didn't make any mistakes, this should work. So let's see what happens if we run this. It's going to take some time to get the tweets, but it's either going to crash. Yeah, it's crashing. Why? It's Twitter keys. Let me just see what I did here. Oh, of course, because I'm opening in writing mode. This is, of course, not right. So we need to open in reading mode. But besides that, this should work. Hopefully. No, we have index out of range. Why do we have that? Twitter keys, which is that. We're opening the file in reading mode .read.split lines. So why exactly is this out of range in line 10? I'm going to come back to you once I figured out the solution. All right, so the solution should be quite trivial. The file was empty. There were no keys in the file. Now I edit them, so this should be the main problem. Besides that, the script should be working. And this is also not a problem that you should have because you can just enter the keys themselves here. And as you can see, we have positive, negative. Okay, the legend didn't work out quite well, so maybe we're going to just not use it. But as you can see, we have around like 45 positive tweets and like 55 negative tweets. So this gives us some information about the state right now, but we don't really have a time frame. Now, the Twitter API goes back to about 7 days. If you're not using some premium API, you can look back 7 days, but it doesn't really give us a good picture about the evolution of this sentiment over time, because let's say a topic is kind of negative, but the negativity goes down and the positivity rises, and it's not as negative as it was a couple of days ago. That is still an upward trend that you should notice. So what we can do is we can actually limit, or not limit, but we can focus on individual days in order to get better results. So what do we do here? We go ahead and say cryptocurrency. Below here, we just say start equals, and then we can define a starting date. Now, it's important that you take care of the fact that you have a 7-day limit. So you're not going to have, you're not going to be able to look at the results for 2 years ago or something like that. So we're going to say 2021. Today is the 6th of April. So we're going to look at 04 here. And the end is going to be 04 or 5. 0405. There you go. So we're going to look at this time period here. And in order to do that, we're going to add here until is going to be end, and since is going to be start. And yes, we can pass that as strings. And this should give us some different results here. So let's see what we get here in this case. Now, I'm also not sure if we're going to get the same results all the time or if it's kind of random. So here you can see definitely that we have like 60 negative tweets and like 30, 38 or something positive tweets. But let's see what happens if we just run this again with the same settings, because maybe it's kind of random depending on the tweets you get. But this should be fixable by just looking at a larger number. But as you can see, this is the same here in this case. We can also just take a couple more tweets, because the larger the size, the more accurate the prediction or the analysis, because remember, the law of large numbers is important here. So let's see what happens if we use 500 items. And then we're probably going to see, I mean, I think we should see a similar result, but maybe not. Let's see if we're going to get any result at all, because maybe we have crossed the rate limit already. Seems like this is the case. I'm not sure. No, there you go. Still pretty negative. So you can see in this time period, we have quite negative sentiment for Dogecoin. Now, if we change this to another day, we might find some different results. So let's say we don't choose this time period, but this time period here, maybe this is going to be different. So let's run this here. And maybe we're going to get some different results. Maybe it's worse, maybe it's better. But what you can do here, all in all, is that you can just look at the past 7 days and spot a trend. So you can automate this with a loop, for example, where you just increase the date. And then you're just going to see, okay, over the last 7 days, the sentiment went from negative to positive, or it went from positive to negative, or it stayed the same. And based on that, you could make investment decisions, even though I don't recommend this. But let's just look at one more. Let's go for this time period here, and if this doesn't help, we're just going to leave it. So you can spot trends. You can also use different search terms. You can use also correlation, so you can get the sentiment for 5 different values for 5 different topics, and then you can compare them and plot them in a heat map to see, okay, if the sentiment for Bitcoin is positive, then the sentiment for Dogecoin is also positive or something like that. So this is something that you can do. Now, this looks a little bit better. It's still negative, but it's a little bit less negative, you could say. At least I think so. But we can change the topic now to Bitcoin, for example. And we're going to get maybe a similar result because they're kind of related. But you will notice that if you enter some search term like happy, for example, you're usually going to get more positive sentiment. Whereas if you enter something like, I don't know, death or anything that's inherently negative, we're going to see a pretty negative plot there. But for Bitcoin, you can see that we have a slightly positive sentiment. So yeah, Bitcoin is probably a little bit more positive than Dogecoin here. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting the like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video, and bye.